Welcome back to A Faster Me. You're joining us here at the 5th in the CBR series. And this is the women's 4-5 and Masters 35 plus. Have a special guest writer today. Kat is joining us, and now she is a member of our team. So excited to have another teammate out here.
And to be clear, since people don't know who Kat is, it's Katrina Stengel. We call her Kat, and there's a couple people that I might refer to as Kat, because Catalina's out here too, and sometimes I say Kat. I don't know if she likes that or not, but sometimes I say Kat. So just a clarification on who Kat is.
So I was able to get a pretty good start, and I'm here behind one of the Masters riders, Sherry, and just trying not to do too much work. Here, I can't remember if she flicked an elbow. It doesn't look like it, but kind of wanted me to come around, and I'm just going to follow her for a minute. I'm a little bit indecisive here, though, of if I should, take a short pull, just not doing a lot of work. But because I'm indecisive, I scoot out in the wind a little bit instead of just staying behind her. So then I'm going to let Emy go by and get back in third wheel, which I would rather be anyway at this point in the race.
Yeah, I don't think she wanted you to necessarily come by. I think she's just playing it smart and just saying, I'm not going to use too much energy. I mean, she's a really experienced rider, so she's not going to come out here and kill herself on lap one. So it's really, she was just sitting up a little bit, and hoping someone comes by. That's what she's doing. See, she's just like, I'm not going to put in too hard of an effort. And for, everyone out there, that's what you do. A lot of people feel peer pressured into like, I got to pull, and then they blow themselves up early in the race or whatever. But yeah, you just pull over if you don't want to be on the front. And if nobody wants to come by, then you just shut it down. Like, don't try to do threshold or anything. Just really shut it down and do, zone 2 or something.
And that's what I did here. I think I even may have flicked an elbow, but I'm just going to pull over, and I'm doing 100 and some watts, which I can do for a long time. In the race, when I looked down, I saw, 100, 120, and here in the video, watching it more consistently, I'm a little bit higher than that. But still not a too difficult of an effort. But getting up close to 200 or even 180 is a little bit of a harder effort than I should be doing at this point. But it's going to hurt me a little bit because I'm not trying to do work. And as we go into this first corner, there's going to be an attack. And that surge is a little bit difficult because that's when you want to attack, is when the pace is slow like this. And somebody takes advantage of that.
Yeah, right here. And she gets a little close to you, if I'm not mistaken, when you see her fly by right now. So, yeah, that could have been disaster right there. If she clips your handlebar, that would have been disaster. So the only thing is, it's a great attack, and she uses it at the right time, because you really want to attack when it goes from slow to fast like this, because you'll get a big burst of speed. She just probably needs to keep her head up, because I think she had her head down when she came by you, and that's how collisions can happen. So really, if she just keeps her head up, stayed a little bit left there. But it's a great attack, and you can see how broken up the field is just from that one move.
Yeah, this was a pretty difficult section into the wind. There's a pretty good headwind and a little bit of an uphill. So I was behind Charity, but not exactly behind Charity right there, who went up on the right side. So I wasn't really getting the full effects of the draft. And, this race, I was looking forward to overcoming some of my mental challenges, because I'm a little bit mentally burned out from racing. I took a break for the LAX race just because I've raced so much this season, but I was looking forward to just trying to overcome some of the mental blocks and get out here and just make a decision to do a little bit better and try to be a little bit smarter and sit in, because that is definitely one of my challenges. So that was definitely something that I was working on this weekend.
And that's Kat right there that Ellen was talking about, our new teammate. Kat did a great job racing this week. This is only like her second crit maybe, second,
And
third. But yeah, she did a great job of racing.
yes, and she does some gravel riding, racing, and mountain bike as well. So she's very strong, but doesn't do a lot of the punchy, shorter efforts. Has a lot more of a big engine to go for the endurance rides. But yeah, it was fun to be out here with her.
Yes, and we will be fixing that. So she would definitely be crit ready.
Well, she can do it all.
Yeah. So I think too, just the characteristics of the course. Obviously, if you're in the race, you know it. But for those of you watching, yeah. So there's just a 4-corner crit, fast downhill right here. When they turn at turn 2, it's into a stiff headwind. So yeah, the wind was a pretty good factor this week.
And I think that, gosh, I couldn't see the number there. It's so small.
67.
So I think that is Sherry, the Masters rider.
Yeah.
But Serious Cycling had quite a big group out here, and I met Deb after the race, so we'll try to point her out. But yeah, it's small sometimes to see the numbers, so it's hard to see when people are by you as we're doing the video.
Yeah, and that's Lissa and Latara next to you right here, or you're behind Latara, Lissa next to you. They've been strong this year as well. Major Motion's been out here representing with a pretty good team all season, and it's good to see Lissa had a great race this weekend, and it's good to see her, coming back to form.
For sure.
Yeah, here's one of the uphill sections, or the first semi-steep uphill section, and this is into a headwind also. Actually, it's a crosswind coming off the left side there. So when you're out up front exposed to the wind, it can get pretty taxing here. So you do definitely want to tuck in, and being on the right side is a little better as far as wind resistance.
One of the advantages of having even one teammate in the race is just being able to do maybe a little bit extra effort to move up a wheel to get next to your teammate. So seeing kind of Kat right there, I was able to, just go in front of, I think, Lissa there to get on her wheel. And this rider here, I believe that's the rider that had a flat at the beginning of the race, and she got a tire that didn't match her
cassette.
Her cassette. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm not so technical, but it just sounded like she was shifting the whole time, like it just was making a terrible sound.
Well, if you look at her right now, look at her pedaling, she can only pedal like 4 or 5 times consistently, and that's because she's under geared. Like, she doesn't have enough gearing to go fast. So once the speed picks up, she can't consistently pedal. So yeah, that's a great job by her, because it's a very difficult thing to do, to hang in the pack here without being able to produce speed. So if you see, she can pedal a couple times and then she'll have to stop, pedal a couple times and then she'll have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because she's under geared. It's like racing in your small chain ring the whole time. And yeah, that would be very difficult.
Yeah, I'd be dying. And so I was not knowing, gosh, do I want to try to get in front of her? But she was doing a great job just kind of struggling through it. And here we're pretty stretched out. We averaged, I think, 22.4 miles per hour, but it felt pretty slow for a good chunk of the race. So there was a few surges, but honestly, that's a pretty fast pace. I think for the time that Camilla was in the pro race, she averaged 22.6. Now that could be a little off, because
And she was in the breakaway also.
Whenever you turn your computer off, so it might not be completely accurate. So I will give that disclaimer, but
Yeah, I think part of it, though, too, like you said, is feels slow, is you did a much better job of drafting this weekend. So, yeah, it's going to feel slow when you're not putting in your own effort out there struggling in the wind. So anytime you're protected and you get some nice breathers here and there, yeah, the race does feel a lot easier.
yeah, it did feel easier. But, as you watch the video, you can see a number of places where there's just some leaks. And then there's a number of times where I did more effort than I should have, even kind of going to the front and not thinking that I was doing any kind of effort, but that adrenaline and, when you're not seeing power numbers, it's easy to just go harder. The perceived effort is not reality.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something to get used to, just staying calm and being able to factor in your adrenaline just with more of a calm state of mind. So, yeah, I think part of it is too, when you refer to leaks, what she means is when she wasn't drafting, when she's using more energy than she should, those were leaks. It just means that she could be taking advantage of the Peloton a little better, and being protected a little bit more. Here you see some different lines of people coming in there. The roads are wide here, so there's always going to lend itself to people making different decisions going into turns, but a lot of it's just a little bit of impatience as well. At the fastest part of the circuit there, you can make up some spots because the road is so wide, but it's also because of the speed, it's also a spot where you need to be really sure of the line you take, just because, if there's any crash there at the fastest point, it can be very bad.
That is probably the thing I look forward to the most about moving up, is just having a little more confidence in the ability of riders taking corners, just because the skills are so varied here in, the lower levels. Being behind, I think I'm behind Sherry again.
Mm-hmm.
And so just knowing that she has the experience, it's a little easier for me to just kind of follow her into the corner. If you have a slightly different line, just trusting someone's skill level and their predictability is comforting.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like we said a second ago, it's kind of like just being able to keep your emotions in check. Most of the time when you see someone that's a little bit out of control, it's usually at a situation where it's not really necessary. So just the fact that people, the race slows down basically when you relax. If you relax, the race slows down, everything's not as frantic. There shouldn't be any big lateral movements. Also, just being able to ride straight is a big deal, and people take that for granted. And when you see them on video, you'll see people that swerve back and forth. Like even when they're just following someone's wheel, they swerve back and forth. And, a lot of those things can be eliminated.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. Some of it is people are pushing and maybe on the limits of what they're doing, and so it's just the struggle and you're doing whatever you can to hang on. And then some of it is bike handling. Some of it may just be practice, being a little too close to the wheel or not. So just a lot of different reasons for that.
Yeah, I think some of it's just conceptual as well, is people don't have a good understanding of drafting and following lines. We talk about cornering all the time on this, on our channel or whatever, but also when you're drafting someone, people think you have to be 100% directly in the wheel track of the person in front of you, and you don't. And that causes people to do a lot of 100 little micro adjustments when really you don't need to be exactly in the wheel track. You can relax, and any movements that you make, you can do it gradually. When that person moves left a little bit, you don't have to move left immediately. And that's what a lot of people do. It's like they try to stick 100% in the wheel track of the person in front of them, and it's not necessary. Everything should be gradual.
And I will say my preference, if I'm going to be not quite directly in the wheel track, is to be just slightly left, because then if you did run up, you have room. But on the right-hand side, there's the derailleur there. So, if you're really that close to someone,
you're not
it's probably irrelevant, but I think about those things.
You're not going to be, if you're near someone's derailleur, that means you're cross-wheeling them. So, yeah, that's not really a factor. And honestly, riding a little bit offset is a benefit. You're still going to get draft, and I'm talking just slightly offset, because you really want to see around the rider in front of you. You should never be just looking at the back of a rider. You should be looking up the road, as far up the road as possible. No different than just driving or riding a motorcycle or whatever. You do not need to be 100%. See, like Ellen right here, she's too far off to the right. But if there's a rider to her left anyway. But yeah, you don't want to be off to the side to where you're in the wind. You just want to be, your wheel just doesn't have to be 100% lined up with the wheel in front of you. It's, that's how people bump into people's wheels and stuff to begin with.
And the rider that I was almost on is Melissa Medoc, and she did a great job. I think she's actually the one that attacked the first lap. And then Laura was out there right next to me. She did a great job
Yeah.
this race.
So you almost drifted into the wind a little bit much here. You can be a little bit closer to the left and get draft benefit still. So here's a better job than last week. As you see, you're going the same, even though you're on the inside, you're going the same direction as the peloton is. Last week, you're drifting off to the inside a little further, and like I was saying, that's kind of like a dive bomb tendency. But today, as long as you stay close to the peloton while you're on the inside, and you all should be headed the same direction when you enter the turn and hit the apex of the turn.
And here you can see some games were being played. We were all the way on the right side of the road, and then we swung to the left side of the road. So that's people not wanting to do, not wanting to pull through and kind of just following the leaders. And I think Sandy is up there in the front, and, she's done a great job this season. And, it had slowed down pretty significantly. So I did want a little bit of a higher pace. I was not trying to do too much of a pull, but we had just slowed down to, I don't know, like 16 miles an hour or something. But I definitely do not want to be putting in the effort that I'm putting in. And every time I look down, I did not ever see that 240 or something. So this is an unneeded effort here, just kind of.
Yeah, it's not too bad though, honestly. If you want to kick the pace up a little bit, it's not too bad to go to the front for a second. And like you did, you really weren't there more than 10, 15 seconds. So it's not too bad. I mean, I know you maybe didn't want to put in as much power as you did, but you're going uphill with the slight headwind. So I don't think that was too bad of an effort. And as you can see now, it's strung out again. So if your intention was to not let it bunch up and slow down too much, I think that was pretty good.
Well, thank you. I didn't have the courage to do a little attack because I wanted to more do a shorter, like maybe 5-second harder snap to stretch the field out, but I wasn't confident in being able to recover, or, I've had one or two situations where I've done that and blown up, where it's a much harder than just a short effort. So some of that just takes practice, but definitely I prefer a stretched out, really hard race instead of a bunched race. Then again, I need to practice being all together and being there at the end and sitting in. So
yeah, I think that was fine. Other than you let too many people pass you, you should have jumped in back into the draft earlier. And I know you still have an issue of like getting in back in, but yeah, that was I think that was fine. And then here, just you used momentum just to shoot up the inside. So yeah, I think that's fine. The only thing is, if you wanted to do a little attack, you should have attacked. Well, you're out of position at that point. So once you pass on the fast downhill, that's not the right point to attack, in my opinion. Just because everyone has their momentum up, you have a hill coming up right in front of you. That's not your strong point of attacking up the hill. So I think, people are just right on your wheel.
yeah, here I did not want to be doing this effort again, but I think I shut it down and just go into this corner pretty slow, pull over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think you should have went back to the front again the second time. But yeah, your momentum carried you down the hill, and that's fine. But I think once you hit the straight, you probably should have just pulled over to the side.
And I can see that this is the area that I definitely need to improve on the acceleration when I'm getting past to get back in.
Yeah, I think you just lacked urgency there. You had a perfect opportunity to accelerate to a wheel, but you just kind of kept going at the same pace you were going. Yeah, it's not magic. It's not going to happen for you all along. You got to put that little effort in and get back to a wheel. Because now look at you're putting in a harder effort now, trying to get back onto people, and this is much harder than doing that little 2-second acceleration to stick to a wheel.
And I think that is Deb in front of me now. I think she has the number for the season, but it's out of sight right now because I'm not in the draft.
Yeah, there's no reason for you to be this far back on the Peloton. I mean, I can see that you're tired, your heart rate's up a little bit, but yeah, this is now you got to put in a harder effort on your own instead of just putting that harder effort in, 15, 20 seconds ago when there was a wheel available to grab.
Right, a lot of wheels available to grab when you're in the center of the peloton being passed on both sides.
Well, yeah, you were number one you went from first to last, first to worst. So, yeah, definitely a little bit of urgency earlier prevents you from making this hard effort, now. Especially we're getting late. It's only like 2 laps to go, maybe, something like that, and yeah.
So I think that was, we may not have pointed it out, but Sandy attacked with about 2.5 to go, and so that's why it's probably stretched out. But she did a great job,
Yeah, maybe we missed it, but I'm pretty sure she attacks on this uphill here. Obviously, she could be gone already if we missed it earlier.
I think it was last lap.
Yeah, she attacked up the inside to the right and, just kept going. Nobody decided to chase or go with her, and it was over at that point. Sandy's a really strong rider, so, it's not necessarily that someone would have been able to go with her to begin with, but being that everyone hesitated and let her get, like, a big 100-yard lead or whatever, with only a few laps to go, it was pretty much over at that point. So now you worked your way back up.
Yeah, so I'm trying to just move up and be in a better position coming into the last couple laps, because that has been something that I've just not been able to do well, is finish a race. So that's what I was just trying to work on today, is sitting in and trying to be there closer to the end.
Yeah, and I would say in the past you've finished plenty of races pretty well. It's just when you sit out in the wind the whole time is when you don't finish races well, and that's because you used all your energy not drafting and sitting in the wind. This time you've drafted a lot better today. Yeah, there's a couple of leaks and there's a couple of times where you're on the front when you didn't need to be, but overall you've raced a lot better today.
Yes, I would agree. I was not going to have a race like last time. And here, when I'm using momentum to move up, I definitely need to stay closer to the peloton. So I don't need to be a whole bike length away on the right-hand side. Even when I'm moving up, there's plenty of room to just be right next to the peloton, and that would conserve a little bit of energy also.
And it's also safer, like we spoke about last week, when someone's next to you when you're next to them, they know you're there. You're not detached from the peloton, and you're not approaching the turn at a different angle. So yeah, being closer to the peloton while moving up the inside has multiple benefits. Obviously, you're going to get a partial draft, but you also stay connected to the group. Everyone knows where everyone's at, and then you can kind of read each other going into the turn instead of all of a sudden someone coming at a different angle out of nowhere. Definitely the pace is fast now. I think there's 1 lap to go. So yeah, this is the most critical part of most races, is just those last couple laps, just staying in position. I'm using the word fighting, but I don't mean literally. I mean just having that sense of urgency and just being a little desperate to hold your position. And maybe desperate's not the right word, because even though you have that urgency, your brain still needs to be calm. Your vision still needs to be good. You need to be looking up the road, not having tunnel vision. The only thing that you should have tunnel vision on is not losing spots for the most part. Other than that, you want to still stay relaxed, but you do have to have a sense of urgency to just, from this point on, I cannot go backwards, basically.
And right there was a little leak. I drifted out of the draft, and I gave up a spot, so Catalina is able to come up on the wheel that I was just on because I, drifted out a little bit.
Well, I think it's just what we just talked about, is because Catalina's calm. She's staying calm. She's on the wheel. She knows, hey, we got a lap to go. She's trying to save energy. And you look a little bit more desperate, I would say. Not desperate, but there's anxiety in you right now. You're trying to get to the front. That's why you're riding off to the side right now in the wind. It's you're not patient. So Catalina's being patient. You can see our cat, Katrina, she's being patient, third wheel right there. And that's really all you want to do. Let someone else do the work, sit in the draft. Just be patient. You got a full lap to go. You cannot sprint or anything for a lap and a half. So yeah, just be patient, sit there, and wait for it's your time to launch, when it benefits you. So here you're coming into the last turn, I think, here. Last couple turns, last 2 turns.
And I did tell myself, like, okay, try to be patient. Catalina's been riding really well and smart, so I was just telling myself, just go ahead and stay on her wheel here. And so I did for a moment, and then I saw Serious Cycling doing a little bit of a lead out. So I chose to try to get on their lead out, but the person they were leading out, I thought for a second it was Charity, and I know she's always there right at the end, but it wasn't Charity. Charity was up the road already.
Here it is right here where you're talking about. You're a little premature explaining it, but right here, yeah, you should have stayed on Catalina's wheel. And if you look up front to the right, there's a little bit of a lead out right there by the Serious Cycling ladies.
And I saw it
Yeah.
happening, and I heard her say go, so I'm like, okay, that's the person they're leading out, and she just died. So then I was out in the wind this entire way by myself. And if I would have just followed Kat up, she's there right in front of me, I would have had a good lead out.
Yeah, we got to get these ladies out of the saddle sprinting. Yeah, you go a lot more faster, you'll have a little more power, but I think a lot of people are just not as comfortable getting out of the saddle and sprinting hard. So,
But it was a great race, and thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Yep, 5th and 6th place for Kat, the new rider, 5th place, and Ellen got 6th place.